Chavra, we're on Daf Yud Zion Amud Bet. We're up to the Gemara. Everybody knows this Gemara. We've repeated it and recited it and learned it many times, but we never learned it together in a Gemara shir, and tonight's the night. This is a Gemara that has a great impact on us because we recite these psukim of the Yud Gimel Midbar Harachamim all the time. Yud Zion Amud Bet. The pasuk here, Vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra, that we're very familiar with, quoting from Sefer Shemot, Parashat Itisa. Hashem passed over him and he called out. Yeah? Ba'amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ilmali mikra katuv i'afshel la'omro. If it was not written, it would be impossible to say such a thing. Melamed shnit ate fakadosh baruch hu k'shliach tzibur v'herald l'moshe seder tefillah. This pasuk vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra means Kadosh Baruch Hu wrapped himself up like a shliach tzibur, and he taught Moshe Rabbeinu a new Seder Tefillah. We call that the Yud Gimel Midbar Harachamim. What does Vayavor Hashem al panav mean, according to Rabbi Yochanan? Kadosh Baruch Hu passed over his face like a shliach tzibur, wraps himself up. Understand? That's the drasha on the pasuk. It's imagery, but the point is, Kadosh Baruch Hu wraps himself up. Vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra, as opposed to Vayavor Hashem al panav means that a Kadosh Baruch Hu passed in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. All right. If you look at the Psukim in Parshat Kitisa, it says, and I'll put my hand, right? While Hashem's passing over, he's going to cover Moshe Rabbeinu, as it were, so you can't see that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is passing by, quote unquote. I guess not literal. You'll see the back of me, not the front of me. But this drasha in the pasuk, you should realize, of Rabbi Yochanan is Vayavor Hashem al panav. Hashem passed over his own face, means he covered his face, so to speak, to be like a shliach tzibur, in order to teach Moshe Rabbeinu this Seder Tefillah. Also, Vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra. There's a little bit of a discussion. Who was Koreh? Hashem passed before Moshe and Hashem called out Vayikra, or as Hashem passed by Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe called out. Okay? We seem to paskin it's the former, not the latter. Namely, since the subject doesn't really change, right? Vayavor Hashem al panav Vayikra, who's doing the Vayikra? Hashem. Because Hashem passed before him. Yeah. Okay. So now, Amar la, kol zman shisal chodin yasu lefana keseder hazeh v'ani mocha lahem. Whenever the Jewish people sin, they should perform, they should enact this Seder, and I will be mochel them. And many other commentators in the Rishonim and the Achronim and the Bali Musar who point out it's not that they should declare Hashem Kol Rachum V'Chanun, but Yasu means to make it happen. In other words, the declaration over and over again, Hashem Kol Rachum V'Chanun, is significant. We're davening to Hashem, we're reminding Hashem of His Yud Gimel Midbar Harachamim. But the point of the Gemara seems to be, according to many, that it's so that when we recite it over and over again as a form of tefillah, we're internalizing that these are the Midbar Harachamim that we should have towards others, and how we emulate to do the Seder of Yud Gimel Midbar Harachamim in our interactions with others, so that Hashem will be merachim on us. This is kind of an idea like that. Yeah.
How can you not asking you, I'm asking the rabbi over here, when we say in lo demutar guf.
So how can you say that? Yeah. So look at the first words. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, ilmale mikra katuv i'afshel la'omro. If it wasn't written in the pasuk, by the way, it's his interpretation of the pasuk, right? I could never say such a thing. Because he realizes I'm talking about the imagery about a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's just imagery. It's not real. It's not physical. But there's a danger when you do that people will misunderstand, right? That what you're talking about. Right? How he says if it wasn't written, I couldn't say it either. But it's written, so I could say it. Now, depends how you read it, whether it's actually saying that. Atzul. Yeah.
Think forward, Moshe did this face. He couldn't go by.
Well, depending. How is he in the cleft of the rock? Right. That's part of the discussion. How is he actually inside that cleft of the rock? Is part that's Inyan. And that's part of the discussion, obviously, to try to understand what it what it's about. The the Gilead Hashas here quotes. You should look up the Gemara in Masechet Megillah on Daf Chaf Aleph. So that Gemara refers to the idea that we talk also about Hakori Omed. We're reading how we should deal with the different readings of different sections of the Torah, right? Who's going to read what, etc. So you have here also a quote from the Torah, right? Here from the book of Devarim, where Moshe Rabbeinu is reciting the story of Matan Torah again, where it says that Hashem spoke to Moshe and he told him, "Ve'ata po amodi madi, stand next to me." Hashem's not physical. So there also, Rabbi Abahu says, "Ilmal mikra mikra katuv yev shala omra kiviyachol avakodesh baruch hu ba'amida," as if God was standing. God's not literally standing. God is not physical.
It doesn't necessarily mean next to me. It could mean with me. I mean,
that is one interpretation. But the point is, with me, like I'm standing, you should be standing. That's how Rabbi Abahu understood it, right? And and we learned from this that Rabbi Abahu goes on to say that a rabbi should not sit on a couch and teach his child, a student rather, who's on the floor. Why? V'atapo amodi madi. Whatever a position the teacher's in, that's what the students should be in also. They're both seated on the floor together, this, that. Okay. The point is, Gilead Hashas just points out there are other examples of ilmala mikra shekatu of ef sharla omro, and that's another example. It's not meant to be taken literally, but we're learning an important lesson. Obviously, we do have the Seder Tefillah, and it does herald from here. Now we come to the actual Yud Gimel Midot. And of course, no one can agree what the Yud Gimel Midot are. Don't you worry, right? Hashem, right? Why does it say God's name twice at the beginning of the Yud Gimel Midot Harachamim? Says the Gemara, Anihu kodem sheyach ha'adam, v'anihu la'ach sheyach ha'adam, v'yasid tshuva. So, I am God before the person sins and after the person sins. In other words, the same name of Hashem is repeated twice. Hashem is not impacted by the negative actions of a human being. Number one. Number two.
Why would we think otherwise?
What?
Why would we think that it would be Sahavamina?
The Havamina? The Havamina that God's you've ruptured some kind of element of being able to access your relationship with God because you sinned.
also,
But no, before you sin, you can have access to Kodesh Baruch Hu, Yishem Yud Kei Vav Kei, and after you sin also. That's one way of viewing it. Another way of viewing it possibly is Hashem, meaning a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Well, I guess I was going to say the same thing twice. I'm going to stop there. Sorry, go ahead.
Could it be that God's creation is flawed, and therefore a negative reflection on him being man?
And therefore, the point is, I'm God before a person sins. I'm God after a person sins. Yeah. Holyoke.
God is the same,
Regardless of whether the person sins or not.
regardless of whether his creation is flawed.
Yeah.
Creation.
I like it. I accept. Okay. Yeah. That's just kind of just saying to George, right? And the point is, or the question is rather, is this a midat harachamim? The Yud Gimel midat harachamim. Are the two words Hashem at the beginning actually part of the Yud Gimel midat harachamim, or are they somehow introductory for what's coming next? In other words, we can all agree Yud Gimel midat harachamim includes words like rachum and chanun.
We don't know about Hashem.
But what about Hashem? This is a debate. We're going to come to it. It's going to be in Tosafot. Rabbeinu Tam versus Rabbeinu Nissim Gaon. There's a back and forth. It's not so easy to figure out. Our assumption is it must be because and everyone's Hashem, so it sounds like it's with it. But is it maybe introductory? For instance, when you say Kel Rachum V'Chanun, Aleph Lamed, so that also is supposed to be one of the Yud Gimel midat harachamim. How do you count up what they are? There's a big debate among the Rishonim and the Achronim. So, Kel, and they have here, Kel Rachum V'Chanun, Amar Rav Yehuda, Brit Kruta, the Yud Gimel Midot, She'ein Chozet Reikam. There is a covenant with the Yud Gimel Midot between us and God, because the Torah itself testifies, Shenamar, V'hine Anochi Korei Brit. We read it every time there's a fast day, and of course, Parashat Ki Tisa. Yes. And that means that whenever we'll say that it's not going to come back empty-handed, it's gonna work. in some way. I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to work entirely, but it'll have some impact. Has to. It's the breed covenant with Hashem. Done. All right. In other words, there's nothing that could happen that could be beyond the possibility of tshuva. It might be a very high bar to reach, but it's not impossible to do. And therefore, the Gemara here now leads into a lot of the Gemaras surrounding the notion of tshuva and the way in which tshuva upends decrees, and when it can and when it can't, and how it does and how it doesn't. I could say at the outset, having been through the Gemara a few times, I don't really understand it. In the end, Kodesh Baruch Hu's ways are inscrutable to me. I just don't get it. Our mitzvah is you do the wrong thing. You do tshuva, you daven, you never stop going. Yeah, if the Gemara and Brachot and Daf Yud, I'm sure you've heard it many times. I've said, given it in drushes many times myself. The Navi Yeshaya comes to visit Chizkiyahu HaMelech, and he tells him, "Put your affairs in order. It's over." Chizkiyahu has fallen ill, and Yeshaya Navi tells him, "Finished." So Chizkiyahu HaMelech rather, basically shouts back at Yeshaya HaNavi, who came to speak in the name of Hashem. So get out of here. I don't have to listen to you. How come? He says, I have Kach Mekublanu Beit Avi Abba. I have received tradition from my elder Zayda, David HaMelech, right? Afilu Cherev Chada Munachat Savar Shel Adam, even if the sharp sword is already on the neck of the individual, Al Yimana Atzma Min HaRachamim. Still down for Rachamim. Could still happen, could still work. So how do you square that with some of the things we're going to read now? God's ways are inscrutable to me. But the Chachamim trying to understand. You could say, well, that was one member in the Gemara and Daf Yud and Brachot. By the way, at the end of that story, of course, is that Chizkiyahu HaMelech he turned to face the wall, right? So what's the wall? The wall of the room? Maybe the walls of his heart. He turned inward. And Hashem hearkened to his prayer. He ended up living after that. He survives. He gets better. Survives. The Navi told him it's over. Yeah. So okay. So it's like get out, Ben Amutz. He called him. Get out. I'm going to keep talking.
We say that
in tzadikim gemurim. Right. Nachon. Yeah. First wide line. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Gedol tshuva shemakarat gizar dina shel adam shnemar. Hashmein leiv ha'am hazeh oznav hachbeid be'inav hesha pen yireh be'inav u'oznav yishma ulevavo yavin v'shav v'rifalo he's going to be able to chew. Now this statement is the beginning of Sefer Yeshaya. Hashem, what?
In Parsha Bo, the Haftorah.
Parsha Bo. Yacholihiyot. I thought it was actually just now in Yitro. Yeshaya chapter 6.
Actually, yeah.
It's the whole Kadosh, right?
Yitro, yeah.
I think that's where it is.
It's
yeah,
Yitro.
just now. Great call. You weren't far off.
Yitro.
So the fact is they could do tshuva, right? V'shav v'rafalo. They could do tshuva and they could be healed from whatever it is. This chapter very challenging. Hashem's telling Yeshaya Hanavi, go talk to them in such a way that they'll ignore you, so that it'll get worse and worse for them, and then they won't be able to do tshuva. And Yeshaya is saying, but why? He's trying to bring the people back. But that's that. If it's shavar follow, so you learn from that. It's possible, obviously, to heal from some kind of a decree. So they want to go back. Amar le Rav Papa labai v'dim lifnei gzardin. Maybe that story that is being told there is before the decree has been issued. Amar le v'rafalo ktiv. The fact that it says and it will be healed. Ezehu davish tzarich refuah ve'omer zegzardin must be that the gzardin already happened, and therefore they need healing from that. Meitrei, a contradiction. Hashav ben a time, mochlin lo shav ben a time. Afilu hevi kol eli nevayot sheba olam ein mochlin lo. Wait, this doesn't make any sense. One line says in one place, if you do tshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, you'll be forgiven. If you didn't do tshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, even if you brought all of the Elei Nevayot, means the choicest type of korban in the whole world, you still won't get mechila. It's not be good enough. So which is it? Can you do tshuva? Can you not? Lo kashya habiyachid habetzibur, right? Because here it sounds like you have a 10-day window, and if you didn't do tshuva, it's too bad. But just a moment ago, we said that it is possible even after the gzar din. The gzar din is the chatim adin is Yom Kippur. We just learned that after Yom Kippur, maybe virafalo, you still could have a healing. How could there be a healing? And then 1 second later, it's pointing out it's after Yom Kippur that the Gezerah came already. It's too late. So the Gemara answers, Habiyachid, Habatzibor. One is with an individual. For an individual, there's an end point. That's Yom Kippur. But for the community, that can keep going, i.e., there's still an opportunity to overturn a Gzera if you get together as a community. Meitvei.
What's Hoshana Rabbah then?
What? It's a community.
You say that you can still do. That's community.
Min
Hoshana
Hastam.
Rabbah.
Min Hastam. By the way, that's 7 circuits, right? That's why there's no vidui. Everything has to be everything you're putting yourself in the community. And again, where's the line? The individual and the community. So you put yourself in the community. Isn't the community the aggregate of individuals? So if the community, right? By the by, b'toch shar chol Yisrael. That's what it means. I want to be among the rest of the whole community, people who are ill wherever they may be, and we're davening. Bavur shekol kami palim bavuram. Those kinds of things. You're mentioning the community, the power of the community. That's what we're talking about. So now another possibility that's challenging.
That's why Shlosh don't need to be in a minion.
And that's what Shlosh Midot also should be in a minute, right? Meitvei, another contradictory source. Ein Hashem Elokech haba. Where's that? Parashat Eikev. The eyes of Hashem are always upon it. It, Eretz Yisrael. In terms of rainfall. Itim Latova, Itim Lara. Sometimes God's eye, as it were, is for the good. Sometimes it's for its opposite. Itim Latova Ketzid. How could it be? What does that mean, Itim Latova? Harei Hayu, Shehayu, Yisrael, Risham Gemurin, B'Rosh Hashanah, Pascal Hem, Geshamim, Mu'atim, L'Sof Chazu Bahen, right? So the Jewish people, maybe, God forbid, were totally wicked. And the Gzar Din came, they were going to get very little rain that year. And in the end, the people did tshuva. So L'Hosif Aleihen Iafshar. Shekachan Kvar Nigzer Gzeira. To add more rainfall, quantity, too late, because it's already, the Gzeira came. Elakash Baruch Moridan Bismanan, Al Haaretz, Hatzricha Lehen. Hakol Lefi Haaretz. So instead, Kadosh Baruch Hu reapportions the same amount of rainfall to fall exactly where it needs to fall, not to fall on the rocky face of a mountain where there's nothing growing, but Davka, the rain falls specifically on the Adamah where the crops are. Yeah, right. So there's no predictive model that can tell you with certainty where the rain is going to come and go. Kadosh Baruch Hu is controlling the rain; it's not quantifiable. Yeah, so etc. So there you have it. Itim l'ra, the opposite. Ketzad. How would that happen? That God looks down at Eretz Yisrael for the bad. Ketzad hayu shahari shahayi so tzadikim gemurin b'Rosh Hashanah upaskol and geshon merubin l'sof chazu mehen l'fachot meheni afshar shekvar nigzer gzeira. The gzeira already in Yom Kippur when they were all righteous, everyone did the right thing. They clapped al chet and etc. And Hashamnu and they davened nicely, beautiful. They did tshuva. So they got a lot of rainfall, but then the backsliding started and things fell apart. So where does the rain fall? Where they don't need it. At a time that's not the right time for it, and not in places that would actually be beneficial. Yeah. So okay. Litova mia likrai likare ligzar dinayu. Right? Velosif lahu. So when it comes to the good, since it's a community, why don't you just say, tear up the decree and make a better decree? Right? If you believe that actually after Yom Kippur, that could be changed for the positive. They do tshuva, right? So if the Gzar Din wasn't good, but then you wanted to go to the positive side, so let Hashem can do anything. Let him tear up the decree, make a new decree. So shani hatim de av shabahachi. No, that case is different. It's not necessary for Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, to tear up the decree and make a better decree, because there's another way around it, which is to reapportion the location of the water and the timing of the water so that it's exactly meduyak in the right place. Think about the difference between sprinklers and drip irrigation. Lahavdil. The drip irrigation targeted exactly where it needs to be. So by the Rebbe Shalom, you can do drip irrigation just like that, Mina Shemayim. And that's the idea. Tashma, here is a proof to the idea about the power of community versus a series of individuals who are in it for themselves. Yordei Hayam ba'oniyot. This is from the Tehillim that we recite, Tehillim Kuf Zayin. It's also where we learn the four who say Birkat HaGomel, the four, Yordei Hayam, Yordei Midbar, Yisurin, and Choli. All of those are all mentioned in this chapter of Tehillim, and each one, Yodul Hashem Chazdo, V'niflotav Livnei Adam. So this one, Yordei Hayam ba'oniyot, Osim Lacha b'mayim rabim, Hemarov Masi Hashem v'gomer, Vayomer, right? They saw the work of Hashem and His wonders in the deep, right? And they see what's happening, how everything's being turned about this way and that. Vayomer vayamot ruach sa'ar v'teromim galav yachog v'enuka shikor. The ship was tempest tossed like a drunkard. It was going up and down in the water, right? Vayitzakul Hashem batzar lahem. They called out to Hashem. Vayitzakul Hashem batzar lahem imutzukotehem yotzieim. That's what we've been saying all the time. All the time, yeah. It's from Tilim Kuf Zion, because one of the groups there is the people go down to its prison. So that's okay. So Yodel Hashem. זה קרה גם בספר יונה, אבל מה שמתואר כאן זה עם ישראל, כאילו. Also another example, another example, sure. Right. Yirat Shamayim fell upon them because of it. Yeah, sure. Yodel Hashem chazdo v'gomer, asal hem tzimaniot ka'achim v'rakin shebetorah l'malacha, tza'aku kodem gzardin, nanin, tza'akul achik gzardin, and a nanin. So there are simaniot, like these upside down nuns that appear in various places, Sefer Tehillim. And it so happens around these psukim, you have these upside down nuns. So that's to tell you that if they called out before the decree was issued, they'd be answered. If it was after the decree, they wouldn't be answered. So how could that be basically? Because these people who are in a ship are basically like individuals. There's a little bit of a discussion. What does it mean they're individuals? They're all in the same boat. You know the expression, we're all in the same boat. So all in the same boat. So it could be there are multiple boats in the water and they're not connected to each other. It could be that even though they're all on the boat together, they're not all related to each other. They're not from the same nation or family or clan. They're individuals who are on a ship and they're only connected to each other because it's a, whatever you want to call it, marriage of convenience. They were shipmates. So they're all in the same boat in that sense, but existentially, they're not in the same boat. This one davens for this, and there's that. Maybe in the Yonah story, right? Kum kra elokecha, they're asking Yonah to daven to his God, and they're also calling out to Hashem. So maybe that united them. Right, and afterwards they get him to be the shliach tzibur. Right? Yeah. Inachinami. Next, Pashma Shala Beloria Hagioret. Rabban Gamliel Ktiv B'Toratchem Shali Safanim. It says in the Torah that God does not take a bribe. Parshat Ekev Uchtiv Yisasham Panavelecha from Birkat Kohen in Parshat Naso. So, which is it? God does not Yisa Panim means God will not be engaged in Sa'ad Panim means he doesn't give a pass. Wherever is just is just. He's not just going to give it a pass. Carry someone beyond what is their just desserts. So, but there's another pasuk that says Yisa Hashem panav elecha, right? So, Taka, there's a question here. Nitpa la Rabbi Yossi HaKohen Amarla Em Sholach Mashal. So Rabbi Yossi HaKohen was there, even though he wasn't asked the question. He gave the following allegory: Lamad Davar Domen. L'adam sheno she b'chaveiro mana. So Ruvain lent to Shimon money, and he told him, he gave him a time. He's going to stand in front of the king to pay it back, and he swore in the life of the king. Time came for Shimon to pay Ruvain back. He didn't pay him back. Balafai said, "Amelach." So he didn't, having not received his money. And knowing that he had not given his money, and he had the oath that he was going to give the money in the king's by the life of the king. So what does it say about what he said about the king? So so he went to appease the king because he realized the king would be upset that his name was invoked for a commitment that was not kept. So he went to appease him. V'amarlo, what did the king say to him? El boni ma'chulach. What you did against me, I'll forgive you. Lech upayes et chaverecha. But you need to go appease your fellow. That can't be done remotely. That you have to go to them. Hachanami kan baverish ben adam lamakom, kan baverish ben adam lachavero. That's a distinction. Shem says I can't deal with ben adam lachavero. You have to take it up with the person who you were involved with. You want ben adam lamakom? That I can deal with. That's indeed what transpires. Achabar Rabbi Akiva v'limei, next page. Kan kodem gzardin, kan la'achar gzardin. So the second interpretation, Rabbi Akiva says, what is this? What is this all about? Asher lo yisa fanim yisa shem panav elecha. It's a question of whether the gzar din was offered yet given or not. If not, asher yisa fanim yisa shem panav elecha. It was already given as a decree. Shelo Yisafanim. Yeah. So Hachanami b'Yachid Gzardin d'Yachid. Sorry. Gzardin. Hachanami b'Yachid. Yeah. Yeah. This also must be the case is involving Yechidim, and therefore after the Gzardin, it's too late. Again, Ayin Sham the Gemara and Bracha and Daf Yud. It's like, how do you deal with that compared to what we're looking at over here? But all right. Let's stop here for a minute and try to pick up, see how far we can get with Tosafot, etc. Yeah. Look at Tosafot, Shlosh say Midot. Omer Rabbeinu Tam. The Shnei Shemot HaRishonim Hem Shnei Midot Am Yud Zayin Bet. Rabbeinu Tam thinks that Shem Hashem are the first two of the Midot, of the 13 Midot. Kidamrin and Hacha. Ani Hashem Kodem Shiachta, L'Rachem Alav. I'll have Rachem on the individual before they sin. That's Midot HaRachamim. V'ani Merachem L'Achar Shiachta, Im Yashuv. Right? So, and after the person sins, I'll also have Rachamim on them. Im Yashuv, Hashem Midat Rachamim Hu. V'lo Ke'elokim Shu Midat Hadin. Shem Elokim, Break Shibar Elokim et Shemaim V'Aretz. That's Din. Right? The very Elokim called the very Ma'il Limor. That's Din. That's the law, justice. But here's the Shem Hashem. Avonu Pesha V'Chata Avinakei. Hem Nimnim Kedat B'Dalad. 4 different things. Kedeita B'Yuma. It's not really in Shnei Seirim. It's in another parak actually. It's Almer Halam Mamuna. Right? Shnei Seirim. But we learned it. The point is each of these lines, right? Avon, Pesha, Chata'a, Nakei. That's considered 4 Bidat HaRachamim right there. Right? Da'avonot elu zidonot. The avonot means things you did on purpose. Pishayim elu hamaradim. The pshayim means that transgressions refers to actual rebellious acts where you know it's completely wrong. You do it anyway, just to anger God, not because of taiva, but because of lahachis. V'chataot elu hashgagot. Right? The chataot, v'chata'a, v'nakei. That means the things you did by accident also need tshuva. However, u'megilat sitarim d'Rabbeinu nisim, ein monis same reason. Sheish psik ben hashemot mishum dahachi ka'amar. Bra. HaKadosh Baruch Shishmo Hashem kara Hashem rachum v'chanan v'notzer chesed lalafim. Right? V'chulei. What does this mean? According to the Megillat Starim of Rabbeinu Nissim, not to confuse with the Ran, Rabbeinu Nissim ben Yaakov Gaon lived in Tunisia, in the city of Karaun. His father, Yaakov ben Nissim, was the Rosh Yeshiva of the biggest yeshiva in Tunisia. It's the headquarters of North Africa, circa the 10th century of the Common Era. When he died, Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Nissim, he left his son, Rabbeinu Nissim, but Rabbeinu Nissim was 16 years old. So instead, who took over? Rabbeinu Chushiel. Rabbeinu Chushiel became the Rosh Yeshiva of the yeshiva in Karaun. When Rabbeinu Chushiel was too old to continue, or maybe he died, I don't remember the exact story, that's when Rabbeinu Nissim Gaon took over. After Rabbeinu Nissim, the next person was the son of Rabbeinu Chushiel, that's Rabbeinu Hananel, who's on the side in the margin here. Tunisia, very, very important in Jewish history. Rabbeinu Hananel, one of the earliest commentaries that we have on the side of the Shas throughout from North Africa. So that's, and Rabbeinu Tam here thinks Hashem, that's part of the Yigimel Mida Rachmim. Rabbeinu Nissim disagrees, and he thinks that if you look, the first time it says Hashem's name, it has a comma. Hashem, there's a psik, the line. Right now, why is it also there? It shouldn't just run on sentence. It should wait. But the fact that it is the cantillation, it's the trup, indicates that maybe it is not part of the Yud Gimel Nid Rachamim. So, she's psik ben Hashemot mishum dahachi ka'amar kra HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says Hashem, sheshmo Hashem, God whose name is Hashem, kara called out Hashem kel rachum v'chanun v'chulei, right? Rachum v'chanun. Rav Chesed Notzer Chesed Lafim Moneh B'Shtei Yadot B'Shtei Midot Tinotzer Chesed Hainu Mida Achat Lalafim, right? Mida Acheret. Hold on. Moneh B'Shtei Midot Tinotzer Chesed Hainu Mida Achat, right? Notzer Chesed does a Chesed means that's for one, but Lalafim is 2,000. Alafim, Aleph is 1,000. So Alafim is minimum 2,000. They say it's assumed to be 2,000. Right? Mida acheret, shemida tov meruba, chamesh meot amidat puranut. Right? Doesn't it say? Al shileshim val ribeim sonai, both chesed la'alafim. Right? So one is 3, maybe 4 generations. The other one is 2,000. So that's 500 times more. Dahatim ktiv al ribeim, v'hachtiv alafim. Right? Because for the negative, it's al ribeim. The positive, you get to alafim, so 2,000. So that's Rabbeinu Nissim, and he thinks the first time it says Hashem that it just means to introduce God's name. This is somewhat problematic, certainly in terms of how the liturgy shapes up and what's written in our Machzorim and our Sidurim. Right? We say Hashem Karachim B'Chanu. Right? According to Rabbeinu Nissim, you know what should be read? Vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra Hashem. Hashem kel rachum v'chanu nerach hapayim v'chesed. It's splitting it, and the first one might not be part of the Yigom Yirah Harachamim.
So he's saying that Hashem and Kel go together. Hashem, Kel.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you look at the
Yes,
top,
yes.
and Arthur back me up on this, if I'm the Munasa Kepeton, right? Hashem, Hashem.
Yeah, yes, but
Kepeton, wait, is
Yeah.
is a Masi.
Yeah.
Right?
yes,
So the Kel Rachum Chanun, that's a Tipak.
They go together.
That goes together, not the second Hashem. Hashem, but Kel Rachum Chanun.
It's a good point. That's Rabbeinu Nissim's point. But Rabbeinu Tam's side is kind of saying, wait, this doesn't make any sense with respect, but it doesn't make sense to me because actually you say Vayavor Hashem al panav vayikra. Then Hashem kel rachum v'chanim. So you're reading it differently. It's the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Understand? According to Rabbeinu Nissim, the first time it says the word Hashem is actually Hashem introducing himself, as it were. It's not a midah. Rabbeinu Tam says he disagrees. He thinks both of them are midah. You finding it? Lamed, what is it? Lamed Daled. Yeah. So you look it up there. So what do you see? Did you get it? It's going to be in the Siddur also, by the way, obviously. Anyway, I think it has the notes. The Trop is also in the Siddur.
yes. Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
Is he going to get the right
So
one?
it says, let's see.
Shmot Lamed Daled, Pasuk Vav.
Okay, so.
Yes, go back.
Okay, so it's Menach Zarki. He's George is right.
Ah.
Yes. Karachum v'chanun and at Nachtar.
Okay.
Karach apayim Rav Chesed v'yamet.
Yeah.
Then it goes no Chesed la'alafin osebam v'fash. Avon is v'fasha v'chata'a. Also at Nachtar v'nakeh lo yinakeh poker avon avod. Yeah, there's a it's a hefsek. There's a hefsek there.
Okay. All right.
Because
Again, yes. So that's part of the debate. Yeah, that's part. Yeah. I understand.
Hashem.
Yeah. So that's the break is right there.
Break is right there.
Yeah. So you could make the case, and maybe it belongs where it came before.
Right.
We don't do that, obviously. We think Yigam Yirach means Hashem Kel Rachum V'Chanu.
Right.
It's interesting to see there was another daya about how to understand it. Look at the column next to Tosafot where it says Haggah. This is an addition of another one of the Balei Tosafot that is being thrown in here to analyze exactly what Tosafot was talking about when Tosafot claimed that the two Shemot are each separate midot. It was exactly the same word. So the God says, "V'hachi ita b'psikta." Everyone with me? It's tiny little script. It's the column to the left of the Tosafot we just learned. V'hachi ita b'psikta. V'tomer tzion azavani Hashem. V'Hashem shechechani. Says Hashem right there. Otan shtei midot azavuni. Mikol makom kasya. Sorry, those two midot. V'tomer tzion azavani Hashem. Comma, Hashem shechichani. Why? Because they're two separate midot rachmim. Hashem abandoned me. Hashem forgot me. It's using both midot. When we come out from kasha, there's still a question here. Kevin d'shneim shel rachamim, but they're the same word. They mean rachamim, both of them. So enkan shtei midot. You don't have two different attributes here. Lekach nira shehei mida achat. Ve'ach mehen shem hatoar. Shekem azkirin oto al adnuto. So maybe it is that one of these is actually a midah harachamim, but the other one is just to describe that you're talking about a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And God's mastery is most on display by the pronunciation of the Shem Yud Ke Vav Ke, which we pronounce as Shem Adnud, Aleph Dal Nun Yun, Yud. So maybe that's good. Lefi Shehu Adon Al Kol, he's running everything. Kemo Melech Al Shem Malchuto, like a king who is going according to the name of his majesty. And that descriptor of God actually refers to the attribute of mercy. Shilafishu Adon Al Kol, since Hashem is the master over everything, Tzarich Linaig Im Kol Be'emot Rachamim, Im Kol Be'midat Rachamim, right? You have to use Midat Rachamim. He's gonna run the world with the Midat Rachamim through and through. That's what Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei is, right? Kel Hashem Kel Racham Chanun. What is Kel? Hu Midat HaChozek. It's the attribute of strength. Yeah, Kibiyad Chazaka. So, in other words, Kel referring to power. Why? Kibiyad Chazaka hu meichin mazal l'chol abriya k'dichtiv tilam kuf dalid hakfirim sho'agin latarf ulevakesh me'el uchlam. Right, the young lions cry out for their food, and they ask from God their sustenance, their food, their prey, and their food. Right, and that's the idea, is that Kel is also maybe of the Rachamim. Rachum, Gamu midat Rachamim, Velo kemidat Hashem. Right? Ki harachim chalukim. So in this case, the Rachum here is also Rachum v'Chanun is also midat Rachamim, but it's not the same thing as Shem Hashem representing Rachamim, because the Rachamim that we're referring to here is a split. There's different kinds of it. There's Rachamim for Shem Hashem. There's the word Rachum. Kenamrin and Hacha. Kodem tshuva acha tshuva means before doing tshuva, after doing tshuva. V'chanun kel Rachum v'chanun gam hu minyan acher. It also means something else. Kimidat Rachamim kimidat Rachamim he shelo be'etzara. Rachamim is when there's no trial going on. There's no crisis. Ki beterem tagi hatzara hu merachem. Before the calamity will transpire, God will have mercy. Shelo tavo, that it shouldn't happen. Aval, but what is chanun? Hu shechonein be'et hadchak ligol hatzoek. So that's a chonein, a chanina. You're crying out for salvation from a particularly acute crisis. Kedichtiv chanun yachnecha lekol za'akecha. Umidazu kiviyachol shebal koach yesh lo lachutz al hatzoek. Wait, yesh lo lachon. Sorry, al hatzoek should have compassion. Chanun v'rachum, right? So el kel rachum v'chanun. That's the supplication, the petition, the one who cries. Avshalokadin, even if it's not really warranted, the person doesn't really believe it, but they're going to cry in such a heartfelt manner. That's what chanun is. Hashem is waiting for that tefillah. Kedichtiv. Ki yitzak elai v'shamati ki chanun ani. Where is that? Parsha Mishpatim we just learned.
Yeah.
It's in the air. Klomar afa pi shebadin ba'avot liadcha. Even though you got the collateral, came to your hand halachically in the right way. Ki hilvita alav ma'otecha. When you gave him the money, he gave you the collateral. Af al pi chen teshivenu, and nonetheless give him back whatever the surety is, the collateral. Ki mitzak elai hamidahi kach sheshma tzakato lefi shechanunani. But if he's going to cry out, even if really you're right, because you have an agreement with him, the agreement is you're going to pay me $1,000 by the end of the month. He doesn't show up with it, so you're going to keep the blanket, the safety blanket that he wants back until you get the money that is your due. That's the point of the collateral. So the Gemara, the Torah is, according to the Gemara, the Torah is basically saying no. Don't get it to a state where that person's going to cry out to Hashem because I'll have to be favorably inclined towards them, right? Therefore, I'm not going to be. Hashem says I'm not going to give a pass to someone who persecutes someone who is in the state where they're going to be calling out to me because they were aggrieved. The shamati ki chanun ani, right? Hashem says I'm going to hear it. I'm going to listen. I'm going to pay attention, and there will be a consequence, even if the person who's asking is not all that deserving, right? V'gam yesh b'lashon chanun matnat chinam. Chanun, also a free-willed gift. Can amrina bebrachot av zayin v'chanoti asher achon al pi she'eino hagun. Even though the person is not worthy, they're still going to get some kind of a free gift. It's a matnat chinam. And that's what Chanun is versus Rachum. Rachum is in a general sense. Chanun is a reaction to a crisis. Erech Apayim, what does it mean God is long-suffering before God gets angry? Note that it's Letzadikim Vila Rashaim. Everyone who is a tshuva should have an opportunity to do tshuva in the right way. And that itself, that very opportunity makes it part of the midot harachamim. V'hem shtei midot. L'vishem mishnei inyanei b'nei adam. V'hi midah tova shakadosh baruch hu marach hapo. V'v'toch kach chozin b'tshuva. Right? These are really two different midot because this refers to two different types of people. And that when it comes to the, and that's the midah tova factor, where we say that Kadosh Baruch Hu will lengthen out the element of when the punishment will come so that the person will do tshuva. I hope that they will. If you're Shalmi Mitagaminan, Marchik Rogez, Shumarachi Menu Ligionot. So the Yerushalmi says it as you know that you're pushing away anger. What is the anger here? You're pushing away the various troops of angels who've been called to the scene. Right? These basically, people are opening up. The Hashem opens the armory, as it were, the warehouse, and he brings out all of his tools of anger. Right. So Baim Eretz Merchak, from a faraway land, the enemy, God forbid, comes to attack. The point is that that Hashem has mercy and is not going to do that immediately, and maybe the people will do tshuva while they're waiting. V'Rav Chesed ve'emet hein shtayim. Rav Chesed is one, and emet is another. K'dashinan k'tiv Rav Chesed k'tiv ve'emet. How could it be he's full of kindness and he's all about truth? Haketzad b'tchila be'emet. Really, it should be the adjudication should be all according to the truth. U'sharosh ein olam mitkayem. Hashem sees the world not going to subsist. It can't survive. So b'chesed, when he sees that, b'chesed notzar chesed achat nosei avon v'fesed v'chata'a hem shalosh v'nakei l'shavim kach pirush harav zal al kan lashon haga. So
can you go back where it says ketzad nishtala be'emet?
Ketzad what?
Ketzad b'tchila be'emet. What is
So K'tiv Rav Chesed.
Right.
It says Rav Chesed and it says Emet. So those two things are in contradiction with each other. How can they both be different midot to judging midot arachim? So okay, said b'tchila Emet. At the beginning, God tries to run the world with Emet. U'sharosh ein ha'olam mitkayem b'chesed notzer chesed. Then he brings along Chesed. He's a notzer Chesed. He created the Chesed.
Okay.
Right.
That's just like Elohim and Yud Vavke.
Right.
Yeah, Elohim is all about team.
Yeah. Some study the rhythm. Right, exactly.
Right.
But the point is, incorporated in the Yigim Rachamim is the word Emet. The fact that Hashem started that way and saw that the world wouldn't subsist, that too is one of the Yigim Rachamim. And the last word, Nosel Mefesh V'Chata'a, Heim Shalosh, not 4, but 5, they see here. Right? Avon Pesach Chata'a. Okay. So that's probably the case. And that's what you have in the Haggah. So a big discussion. What is the Yigim Harachim? Very mysterious. Are the first words actually part of it? Are the first words the introductory phase? And every time we recite it, we're getting ready. Are we making an affirmation? Hashem before I sin, Hashem after I sin, and now and now I'm going to say the Yigim Harachim. How do you draw the lines between them? Many Rishonim and Achronim had different ideas about how to count up. That's the reality. All right, I actually have to stop here because I have another meeting in about 14 minutes. So it goes.
Next week you're in.
Okay, now next week, let's just figure this out. Next week will be the Or Torah reunion. I'll be in Florida, and there'll be Yarchei Kala. I think we're going to do Thursday. We can't keep skipping. And Sunday night is a wedding.
Thursday is the STP.
SCP is not till 8:30.
Okay, you would do Gemara first.
I'll do Gemara 7:15 to 8. I'll drink a nice hot drink in between, and we'll go to 8:30. That's CP. So next week, Thursday night, 7:15 this year. Okay? Maybe I'll fall asleep in Smichas Chaver, but I won't fall asleep in Gemara, so that's good. Laila Tov, everybody.
Next week you're gonna be in Florida.
Next week I'll be in Florida. Anyone wants to come, you're welcome. If you're in Florida,